A winner so insane it took a guy's career to the top. The craziest last-minute brace in Champions League history. These are the 25 times substitutes changed the game in football. And first up, it was Gareth Bale's infamous moment from 2018, the Champions League final. Bale was part of a Real Madrid team taking on Liverpool in Kiev. But when the team news for the biggest game of the season came out, Bale was benched. Coach Zidane chose to start with Isco instead. And with the score tied at 1-1 coming into the 60th minute, Zizou figured it was time for Bale to get his chance. So he subbed him on, and Bale had been waiting for his moment all game, his opportunity to impress on the big stage. And minutes later, he scored arguably the greatest goal in a Champions League final. A bicycle kick in a final. It doesn't get better than that, man, damn. To add more gloss to it, 7 minutes from the end, Bale scored the goal to make sure a third Champions League title in a row was coming to the Bernabeu.
Oh, he's gone for it! And it's gone straight through the goalkeeper's hand!
Man of the match, well deserved. Crazy how less than 9 months later, this time in the semis, another Spanish giant team was involved in the same situation. Barcelona. After beating Liverpool 3-0 in the first leg, they came into the second leg at Anfield knowing what they had to do. Avoid losing by 3 or more goals, score 1, and they'd be through to the semis. Liverpool wasn't going to go down that easy. Origi scored early on, but by half-time, the plan they had was on the verge of collapsing. See, Liverpool's main left-back, Andy Robertson, he picked up an injury in the first half, and at the start of the second, he couldn't continue. So Jurgen Klopp brought in Georginio Wijnaldum instead. And less than 15 minutes after he'd come on, he took the roof off Anfield. Scored a brace to help Liverpool win 4-0 and knock out Barcelona. One of the greatest comebacks in Champions League history. Notice how I said one of, not the greatest. That's a story only Sergi Roberto can answer to. 2017, Barcelona versus PSG in the Champions League round of 16, and coming into the second leg, Barca needed a miracle to progress. In the first leg in Paris, they got beaten 4-0. And at the time, no team had ever come back from 4 goals down in the first leg before. But Barca was determined to change that. With seconds left to the end of the game, they were somehow 5-1 up. But because away goals was still a thing at the time, they needed 1 more to complete the job. But time was running out. Literally seconds left to play, and even the goalie Ter Stegen came up when Neymar floated a cross into the box. Looked like it had gone past everyone until Sergi Roberto produced the moment of magic. I don't care what else he does in his career, man, this moment made him GOATed for life. Over to the MLS now, and on his first day, another GOAT was showing the States how it gets done. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He signed for LA Galaxy from Manchester United early in 2018, and his first game brought a big task in front of him. He came on as a sub, and his team was losing 3-2 at home. With Zlatan on the team, they only needed half a chance to get back in it. And seconds later, Zlatan scored a golazo to have the stadium shaking to its core. He wasn't done. A draw wasn't going to cut it on his first day. He wanted to win, so he was in the box again, and pretty soon, Zlatan found the winner. Vintage Zlatan stuff. Performance so good that he inspired a beast who grew up watching him to recreate a performance like that on his debut too, Erling Haaland. In 2020, Haaland signed for Borussia Dortmund from RB Salzburg, and on his first game, the team was losing to Augsburg in the Bundesliga when the clock hit 60 minutes. Dortmund's coach at the time, Marco Rose, decided to bring Haaland on as a sub. They desperately needed to change the game, and I'm pretty sure Haaland's job must have been to see what he could get out of his debut and impress and all. I mean, it was less than 25 minutes to play, and the game was almost gone. But once Haaland stepped on that pitch, the rest guys became history. In less than 25 minutes, he came on and bagged a hat-trick. Let this sink in, man. The kid bagged a hat-trick on his Bundesliga debut from off the bench.
Sancho, Calangol.
What a cameo! Bagging a hat-trick on your debut is nice, But what if I told you there's a dude from off the bench who hit a goal-scoring glitch so crazy it set a new world record? Robert Lewandowski. So here's the deal. In the 2015-16 season, Lewandowski and his Bayern team were facing Wolfsburg at home, a game they were expected to win. And I guess coach Pep Guardiola must have been feeling so confident about this one that he decided to bench Lewandowski from the beginning. Wolfsburg shocked the stadium to take a 1-0 lead into the break. And at the start of the second half, Pep wasn't going to watch his team get beat like that. So he brought in Lewandowski, and in the space of 9 minutes, Lewandowski had the entire stadium stunned. He hit 5 goals in 9 minutes. The goals didn't stop, and he turned the match on its head by himself. Sometimes though, I guess it isn't about the number of goals, but how clutch it is. Like the 17-year-old kid who won Manchester United the Premier League back in 2009, Federico Macheda. In 2009, Macheda was on the bench for United in one of the most crucial games of the season. Coming into the match versus Aston Villa, United had lost their last 2 league games in a row and slipped behind Liverpool in the race for the Premier League, meaning they quite simply had to win here, no excuses. But somehow, as the clock hit 60 minutes, United were losing 2-1 to Villa at home. Desperate times meant Sir Alex needed to do something fast, so he brought on a 17-year-old Federico Macheda for Nani. Ronaldo scored minutes later to tie the game at 2-2, but heading into the closing stages, United needed to win. That was the only way they would keep on top, so they pushed hard, and Federico Macheda did this. For a 17-year-old kid, that was awesome. Macheda's goal helped United stay on course and win the league that season too. His goal turned him into a star. He's not the first United player to bag from off the bench though. 12 years later, and a seasoned pro made the difference with a cameo. Edinson Cavani. In 2021, Cavani and Manchester United travelled to St Mary's to take on Southampton. The goal that season was to secure Champions League football, so a win was always going to be top of the agenda for United. But with less than 30 minutes to play, United were losing 2-0. Coach Ole Gunnar Solskjaer decided to bring on Edinson Cavani to make the difference, and by the time the clock hit 90, he turned it around, scored 2 goals and got the assist to make it 3-2 United. The guy's been doing this all his life. Ole making the sub from off the bench almost felt divine. If there's anyone to talk about sub apps, it's the man himself. In 1999, he changed the course of United's destiny and made them champions of the continent. The 1999 Champions League final, Manchester United versus Bayern Munich, and from kickoff, Bayern dominated the game, took a 6th-minute lead and wanted to end United. The Red Devils were trying to hang on all game, and seeing how the game was playing out, Alex Ferguson decided to make the changes. And with 9 minutes to go, he brought in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer too. The mission was simple for the baby-faced assassin: find a way to get his team back into the game against the odds. Teddy Sheringham scored an extra time to make it 1-1, but this was only stage 1 of the plan. The final part was left to the assassin to finish the game himself. Solskjaer won it extraordinarily for United and scored the winning goal to give them the Champions League. Took his career to the next level too, like it did for this next dude in 2020. Eric Choupo-Moting. He was on the bench for PSG in the Champions League quarter-final of 2020 versus Atalanta when the clock hit 79 minutes and they were losing 2-1. This was a match PSG was expected to win. Choking on it like this wasn't going to go down well with the supporters and club owners. So with less than 10 minutes to go, Thomas Tuchel decided to go for broke and brought in another attacker in Choupo-Moting. The team scored later to tie it at 1-1, and with minutes left to play, the sub found the winner. Choupo-Moting's goal won the game for PSG and sent them to the semis. It's not only outfield players who've had crazy sub-appearances, even goalies have come off the bench to make insane cameos too. Like the time this guy with gloves needed only 7 minutes to send his team to a World Cup semi-final, Tim Krul. In the 2014 World Cup quarter-finals, Netherlands was facing tournament underdogs Costa Rica, and the match was so tight that it went all the way to penalties. Seconds before the end of extra time, Dutch manager Louis van Gaal knew what he had to do. In a penalty shootout, you don't just need your best players alone to take spot kicks. You also need a goalie who's capable of saving them too. So he brought on Tim Krul for the shootout. The move could have gone either way, but in the end, Van Gaal was right. Krul saved the decisive spot kicks to send the Netherlands to the semi-final versus Argentina. Same vibes with Kepa Arrizabalaga coming off the bench to win a trophy for Chelsea. The 2021 UEFA Super Cup, Chelsea versus Villarreal, and the match was so tight it went to penalties. Just before the end of extra time though, Chelsea's coach Thomas Tuchel made a decision that sparked a load of controversy. See, in 2019, Kepa was supposed to get subbed off at the same point for a penalty shootout versus Manchester City, but he refused to come off, stayed on the pitch and unfortunately lost the shootout. 2 years later, and he was coming on to replace Edouard Mendy to help the team in a shootout. Kepa had to perform, or else the critics from 2019 would be back to haunt him. And it's safe to say, he more than did. Saved 2 penalties to help Chelsea win the shootout 6-5. Kepa became the new Chelsea hero that evening and banished the ghosts of 2019 too. Amazing. But you see guys, not every substitute cameo ends up like the one Kepa had, or any of the previous ones. Sometimes a substitute cameo can end up going wrong, changing the game in a negative way for the team, like Simone Zaza in 2016. Italy was facing Germany in the quarterfinals of the 2016 Euros, and the game was again really tight. 1-1 after extra time, and it was going to a penalty shootout to decide it. Once again, the motive was simple for Italy's head coach, Antonio Conte. Simone Zaza was one of his best players. Plus, he was part of a group of guys who had already subscribed to Mr. Football too. So it just made a whole load of sense to bring him on for the shootout. But looking back at it now, I'd bet Conte wishes he could take that decision back, because when it got to Zaza's turn, he sent his penalty kick into Pluto. Ouch. That miss was decisive, knocked Italy out of the Euros and sent them crashing. I don't know man, it's almost as if subs and penalties in the Euros never end well. Same thing happened in 2021, this time to the English guys in the final. England versus Italy. The game was going to a shootout. With the scores tied at 1-1 coming into the closing minutes of extra time, everyone knew this one was heading into a shootout, including England's manager Gareth Southgate too. He'd seen his team practice them in training and knew the players he wanted to bring on. And for this purpose, he subbed in Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford to get the job done. But it didn't quite go as planned, because when it got to both their turns in the shootout, well, both misses meant England lost the shootout at Wembley to Italy. Sad stuff. Back to the goals now, and in 2018, from off the bench, a certain Swiss Superman had the noisiest stadium in England rocking. Xherdan Shaqiri. He was on the bench for Liverpool versus Manchester United in 2018, and with both teams having quality players on each side, the game was open. Liverpool took the lead, United equalised, and from that point on, it became so tight that both managers knew a sub was going to be the difference. Jurgen Klopp acted first, by bringing on Shaqiri, and it's like he'd been waiting for that moment all game, because once he stepped his feet onto that pitch in the second half, there was no stopping him. His brace changed the game for Liverpool. They won it 3-1 and beat United in the Northwest Derby to help push the fight for the league title. Shaqiri's amazing cameo also made him a fab favourite at the club. He got even more game time thereafter, which reminds me of the time Wout Weghorst made himself a national hero in the country's biggest game of 2022. The Netherlands versus Argentina in the World Cup quarter-final. Weghorst was on the bench for the Dutch from the start, meaning he had a front row seat to watching Argentina take a 2-0 lead and having a command of the game. 78 minutes gone and Louis van Gaal couldn't watch his team just give up that easy. So he sent on Weghorst to try to see if he could get a way back into the game. And he responded with a cameo performance that was so crazy it even had the GOAT stunned. Scored in the 83rd minute and deep into stoppage time to take the game to extra time. Weghorst did the damage. Messi was even so pissed he refused to shake the guy at full time. Damn. Watching that Weghorst cameo reminds me of a certain Uruguayan who, against the odds, won the game for his team at the start of last season. Darwin Núñez. He was on the bench for Liverpool when they took on Newcastle in the Premier League. The game was always going to be tough, but the Newcastle team made it even harder. They took the lead early. Minutes after that, Liverpool's captain Virgil van Dijk got a red card and was sent off, meaning Liverpool had to try and find a way back into the game with 10 men. 60 minutes into the game, Liverpool was still hanging on to the lead when Jurgen Klopp decided to make a sub and brought in Darwin Núñez. His job must have been to at least help the team get to a point, but Núñez was gunning for all three and stole the show in Tyneside. Bagged a clutch brace to win the game for Liverpool from off the bench, stunned St James's Park, and the chants of his game got even louder. If you think this brace is crazy, you've got to check out the guy who made a headline statement at the Bernabeu. Joselu. Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich in the Champions League second leg semi-finals last season. After both teams drew 2-2 in Munich, the game at the Bernabeu was supposed to decide it. And with less than 20 minutes to play, Bayern Munich had the advantage. They scored first, meaning Madrid had to match that, else they'd be knocked out. The clock was ticking fast, and Madrid's Carlo Ancelotti knew he needed to make a decision, so he brought in Joselu with minutes left to play. Madrid desperately needed a goal from somewhere, and Joselu proved to be the difference. His incredible brace sent Madrid to the semi-finals against the odds. An impossible comeback. Just to show you how stunning this one was, Bayern was so confident about winning the game that they took off players like Harry Kane and Leroy Sané. Thought it was all wrapped up, but Joselu said no. Joselu's brace sent Madrid to the final in Wembley. Over to the other side of Madrid now, and in 2020, another Spaniard was making sure the only noise at Anfield was from the away end. Marcos Llorente. He came on as a sub in the second leg for Atletico Madrid with his team stuck in a situation. They won the first leg 1-0, but with the game having gone into extra time, Liverpool scored 2 to make it 2-0. Atleti had to score 2 goals, else they'd be knocked out. Llorente, like the rest of his teammates, knew this too, so he hit up another gear to his game, and by the time he'd leveled up, Llorente turned the match around on its head. His brace and assist helped Atletico Madrid dump Liverpool out of the Champions League at Anfield. What a story! The Liverpool fans wouldn't have been too pissed though. In 2018, they had a sub produce one of the most iconic moments in the game's history. The Merseyside derby of 2018, Liverpool versus Everton at Anfield, and the match was as tight as ever. The scores were 0-0 heading into the 90th minute. Liverpool needed a winner, so they brought in Divock Origi. With less than 15 minutes to go to change the game, the truth is, Liverpool made a host of attacking subs in the match. But it wasn't cutting-edge stuff, and by the time Virgil van Dijk took his shot sky high, it seemed like the chance to take all 3 points in the derby had gone. But from the bench, Origi came on with the mentality of getting a win for this team. Didn't give up, and seconds later, he got the perfect reward with a clutch goal to send Anfield going crazy. The winners at the Derf. It's into the top 5, and at number 5, Lionel Messi lit up the States off the bench with an insane debut cameo. Messi had just completed his move to Inter Miami weeks back, and in his first official game for the team, the stars all came out to see him perform. I'm talking about guys like David Beckham, Serena Williams, and LeBron James. All these people wanted to watch Messi put on a show, but they were going to have to wait a bit for it because Messi was starting his first official game for his new team on the bench. Still, the scores were deadlocked on the hour mark when Messi got introduced. He came on to change the game, and with a minute left to the end of the 90 minutes, he got his chance. The Inter Miami team won a free kick outside the box. Messi position, and I'm pretty sure you've kind of guessed what happens next. Top bins won the game for his team on his debut. Magical GOAT doings. No offense to Messi though, but his 90th minute winner was in the MLS. The time his arch rival came off the bench to make a stunning sub appearance, Messi had a front row seat to it. In the 2017 Spanish Super Cup final, Real Madrid versus Barcelona at the Nou Camp, at the 58th minute mark, the scores were tied 1-1. Barcelona had all the stars you'd have been expecting to play on the pitch, from the likes of Messi to Suarez and Iniesta. But for Real Madrid, their star man Cristiano Ronaldo was on the bench recovering from an injury he'd picked up in the summer. Ronaldo was back in the team, got subbed on for Karim Benzema, and with the entire stadium and the global audience watching at home, once he got in position, it was checkmate. CR7 top bins. And that shirt celebration to show his ripped abs were full on too. Cold. Ronaldo's goal sent Real Madrid on their way to a 3-1 win in the first leg of the Super Cup final. Job done. Wonder where this one ranks on Ronaldo's list of crazy cameo appearances, man. I bet his most important one though was the one he got to witness firsthand. Euro 2016, Ronaldo and Portugal made it to the final against the hosts, France. And the game plan for Portugal must have been to hope for a Ronaldo-inspired performance in the final. So when only after 25 minutes he got injured and had to come off, it was like the plan was falling apart. Still, Portugal managed to hang on. The game dragged into the second half, and with 11 minutes to go, Portugal made a substitution that would change the country's history. Coach Fernando Santos brought in Eder, and the match went into extra time. With barely 10 minutes to go until penalties, and Eder repaid the faith Santos showed him in the best way possible. Still gives me goosebumps just watching this one. This was the goal that made Portugal become champions of Europe for the first time in the country's history. Scratch that, this was the first major achievement in the country's history. Dude became a hero off the bench. No one saw his goal coming. 11 minutes towards the end, the time Rodrigo Goes struck for Real Madrid, it was the football version of Mission Impossible. Real Madrid versus Manchester City in the 2022 Champions League semi-finals. The first leg was pretty chaotic, ended 4-3, and in the second, in minute 73, City scored to take the lead on the night, and increased it to 2 on aggregate. Now Madrid was in trouble. 5 minutes earlier, Rodrigo had come on as a sub to help find the goal that would draw them level. But now he was having to look for 2 goals along with the rest of his team to at least take the match into extra time. The clock hit minute 89, and at that point, Madrid had a 1% chance of qualification. The game looked dead and buried, but that 1% chance was the only thing Rodrigo needed. Benzema finished the job in extra time, and Madrid won it 3-1 and 6-5 on aggregate to reach the final. This would have been the greatest substitute appearance on the list, but at number 1, it's the guy who owned 2014 with the biggest moments of his career, Mario Götze. The World Cup final, Germany versus Argentina, and the match was so tense that it was still deadlocked at 0-0, heading into the closing minutes. Just before hitting the 90th minute mark, Germany's coach, Joachim Löw, made a big decision. He decided to take out striker Mario Klose and replace him with a 22-year-old kid prodigy, Götze. The substitution seemed a strange one at the time, but as the match went on, it became clear that a moment of individual brilliance was going to be the difference between the two teams. And with 7 minutes left to the end, Götze wrote his name in the history books.
Aimed it for Götze!
His goal won the World Cup for Germany. It made him a star. But it's 2024 now, 10 years after, and Götze faded off after this. Wonder where he is now? Click the next video to find out how Götze and other footballers ruined their careers.